The views and opinions expressed in the following paid program are those of the host, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of this station, its management, or owners.
Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC. Kestra IS, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC. Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Capital Advisory Group, Inc. is not affiliated with Kestra IS or Kestra AS. Neither Kestra IS nor Kestra AS provide legal or tax advice and are not certified public accounting firms.
You work hard for your money. For the next hour, you're going to learn how to keep what's yours. Capital Advisory Group presents Keep What's Yours. Here are Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. My name is Josh Gilbert, sitting here with Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Hello, Jeff.
Happy Saturday.
And it is
a beautiful Saturday.
I mean, it is. It's so gorgeous out, but you probably have to crawl back in your hole.
Yes, I do.
Because it's that, I mean, what is spring? You know, eggs and rebirth of all of the grass and the trees, and it's a symbol of rebirth and coming back into it, and you miss the whole thing.
Exactly. And golf. Golf's
golf.
coming around.
Yeah.
It's almost time.
And the Masters is coming up.
That's right.
But you're going to miss it all because you're stuck doing
That's right.
taxes.
They lock me in my office and let me out every once in a while for entertainment purposes.
Well, you can have the TV on in there. I see you got
Oh,
a
I
TV
do.
in
I got
there.
a huge TV in there.
Yeah. You got a nice little fireplace.
That's
so
right.
at least you're nice and cozy in that office.
I could be
of
very
yours.
cozy in there if I need to be.
But the point is, you are in the thick of it.
Oh,
You've
yes.
got my taxes in hand, so
Yes.
I'll be waiting for my refund. Wink, wink.
Big one.
You've got, hopefully it is. You've got a bunch of other people's taxes, and you know it's time to remind everybody why it's beneficial to use the same tax preparer every year. Now, Jeff, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. If you'd like to call them, please feel free.
Please do.
636-394-5524. But we are in year 3 or 4, I can't remember, of
I think 4.
taking our taxes to you. And when we first started, you helped us set up our FSA with my son's school. I'm going to ask you a couple of when you have a chance to come up for air, I'm going to ask you about a couple other things that maybe I want to get started, just for the future, not only for me but for my wife and my son. But I'll wait until you're done with tax season. But when you look at the landscape out there, and the commercials are rampant during March Madness, they're all over our radio stations. They're all over everywhere. This time of year, the people are out front of the businesses,
Yes.
twirling the signs, dressed up as Uncle Sam and the Statue of Liberty. They should have an eagle. Anyone see an eagle?
I don't
Like
think there's an
bald
eagle for anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those places.
I have one next week.
Yeah. Drive down in Ellisville.
Yeah. City of Ellisville will probably come tell me to remove it.
See if you can see Jeff's eagle. They're, and I don't want to call them tax mills because that.
Some are, some are not, but some literally are. And the issue is when you go in, you really don't get the same person every year. They have to start from scratch. They really don't know what you have going, and kind of like. And I say not that we're all tax cheats by no means, but there's stuff where you could stretch it a little bit, and then there's points where some people are. There's a gentleman. His wife is a counselor. She's technically an educator, so they're entitled to a $300 educator credit. And he's like, oh, she really didn't spend any money for that. So I mean, there's an honest person, honestly, who said, take it off. It's a $300 credit, but really she only spent like $86, so just take it off. I'm not worried about it. That's the kind of stuff that big picture that people know. You understand your client. You understand what they're doing, why they're doing it. And kind of you'll be able to help them as you go forward versus just somebody come in and say, here's all my stuff. And if you're missing stuff, they never know it. That's the problem.
And that's the thing. I want to be fair, but my uncle did this seasonally,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not like they work in the office year round.
Exactly.
They hire a bunch of help to
Yeah.
crank out taxes. And, and he wasn't a CPA by trade. He
Yeah.
was, he just had the free time to do this.
To do it, and
his
maybe
spare
they
time.
stay up with the continued education
Well,
stuff.
that's the thing.
Maybe
They're not
they
going to the
don't.
conferences. I can't even tell you what my uncle was doing, the other
Mm-hmm.
9 months out of the year.
Yeah.
But he, a brilliant man.
Yeah.
He did my taxes for a couple of years, but you know what he never did? He never came back and said, "Hey, Josh, you could be doing X, Y, and Z
Exactly. Yeah.
to save more money next
Yeah.
year." He was never asking me any questions. Like you said, I gave him my paperwork. He did my taxes. It was over.
Whatever was there was what got recorded. If you go, "Ooh, what about this?" And there's some stuff with clients. I mean, the funny part is, there's even a couple occasions where I've heard through the grapevine that somebody had a baby. They came in, dropped all their stuff off, kind of forgot about their
didn't
new
mention.
kid. Yeah, and we were like, "Wait a minute," and you go, "Hey, didn't you have a kid?" No, "Oh yeah, that's right."
That's huge.
Which is big, because otherwise you would have done the return, send it on their way. And again, some people critique their return down to every schedule, and I love that. And then other people just go, "Oh, take it at face value and roll with it." Don't take it at face value. Look at the return. Even if you don't understand where the numbers are going or coming from, just scroll through it and look for stuff like, "Hey, we have 3 kids, but I only got 2 on my tax return." Could be we missed a kid. You know what I mean?
Well, that's insane to me. But you're telling us that it happens.
It happens.
And it's one of those things where you get to take advantage of the child tax credit.
Yes.
You get to start declaring independence. You know
Exactly.
the hospital bill for the birth. There might be something in there that you can
Exactly.
put on. So I hate to say it, but when my baby comes screaming out, the one thing is. 10 fingers, 10 toes.
Yep.
And then the other thing I was thinking about, man, we are going to get a big tax return.
But it cost you 10 times, so.
Oh, I know. It's not a money-making scheme, that's
No,
for sure.
definitely not.
But this is what happens when you don't have the same person year
Yeah.
after year who can sit down with you and say, "Hey, how are the kids?"
And to the
congratulations.
degree of there's some where they kind of shut down through the summer. There's nobody there.
You
And
know-
so if you get a notice.
Hey, I forgot to tell you that I had a
Yeah.
baby. There's
Well-
nobody answering the door.
Yeah, not even that. But what if you get a notice from the IRS, state of Missouri, state of Illinois, saying, "Hey, we want more money." In some tokens, hey, maybe they're right, very few, but typically they're picking something up that they don't like or they want clarification on.
How far after we do our taxes do those letters start rolling in?
We have stuff coming in, and the IRS, again, I say this seriously, is open for business. That's the real deal now. I think they're coming back with the vengeance because we're getting stuff. They're asking questions on tax returns from 2019. You go, that's pre-COVID. It was filed in COVID, but it got really messed up is the only way to explain it.
Yeah.
So there's weird stuff going on, but the letters are starting to come out left and right. Audits are back in the swing. We've got, I think we saw 3 audits in the last couple of weeks that are real deal. Show up downtown, sit, have a nice discussion, and prove what you wrote off.
Sure.
So,
But having you there as a advisor, as the person that does my taxes,
Exactly.
you're also
We'll-
my wealth advisor as
we'll
well.
help you pull all this stuff together, make sure that you have your, I say, story straight, if you want to call it that.
Right.
This is what you present to them. In some cases, we have a couple people in our office that'll go present for us.
And I've got a weird case where, me and my wife and I, we share a property with my parents that we use for, to rent out.
Yeah.
We use it to make money. My wife's got college loans.
Yeah.
We've got this. We've got an FSA. We might want to do that. I don't want to every year have to go back and explain all of this stuff
Exactly. Sit
to a
down
new
for
person.
45 minutes and go, hey, don't forget about this. Hey, don't forget about that.
Especially if it's a new person at one of these places that all they want to do is turn and burn and get you out
Yeah,
of there. 'Cause
exactly.
They're going to ask minimal questions.
Yeah.
They're going to just take the paperwork you give them. They're not going to
Ask for that
be
extra.
thoughtful
Yeah.
about, hey, do you have this or do you have that? And frankly, I can't imagine that they'd ever call me in. I can't wait to have the conversation with you after we can do our taxes, file them, and then go over them
Exactly.
to see how we could do better next year. I can't imagine they have meetings like that.
They don't.
You know,
They literally just their theory is we're a prepare, have a nice day, whatever you bring us,
Yeah.
we put on there, right, wrong, or indifferent.
Yeah. Write
It's
us a
wrong,
check,
we'll,
see you later.
We'll fix it. If not, tough toodles.
So that is just the immediate benefit of having the same tax preparer year after year, someone you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
someone you trust, someone that can look into your life and find you some money that you can save maybe this year, or maybe say, hey, if we do this now, we'll save this much more money next year. And I just don't think you're going to get that at
You won't.
the guy with the sign out front
Yeah.
dressed as Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
I mean, call me crazy.
Yeah.
I just don't think that you're going to get that kind of service. And it's not even like, Jeff, it's not like you're charging, 10
no.
times more than
No,
these
no.
other places.
Not in the slightest bit. Yeah.
I
It's
tell
actually,
you-
it's equal to or a little bit cheaper.
Cheaper.
At the end of the day. So,
I tell you, we have made money by using Jeff Zufall because of all the money that we've kept.
yes.
Just of you finding us the FSA, of you finding us this, of you saying, well, if we incorporate and do an LLC, we can, do this and not that. And it's like we're not to say we're making money,
No,
but
I mean,
but we're not
you're
giving.
not giving what unnecessary dollars to the feds or the state.
We're not sending it off to the IRS. And
Yeah.
God love them. I love to pay my taxes.
That's right.
Because I love my bridges and my roads and
That's
my
right.
schools. But I don't want to give them a penny more
Than what you're legally obligated to.
than they deserve. So that's why you have Jeff, and having the same tax preparer every year. It's just the benefits are, they are monetary, but they're also
Exactly.
things that you can't even count on.
That
a
makes
spreadsheet.
life a lot easier on a lot of stuff.
So let's give out Jeff's number again, 636-394-5524, Capital Advisory Group, capitaladvisorygrp.com. Jeff's in the thick of it, but he'll still take your phone call, 636-394-5524. And when we come back, we'll see how it's going this year. Anything pop up? Anything new? Did you say, oh my gosh, I just discovered this that I can share with my clients? We've got a little bit of all of it. So we'll be back right after this. It's Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall right here on the Big 550 KTRS.
Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Back on the show, back on Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert, Senior Tax Strategist, Jeff is, and Wealth Advisor, that's Jeff, not me, with Capital Advisory Group, 636-394-5524. Have you done your taxes yet? Do you have a preparer that you use every year? If you are paying too much in taxes and you say something's got to end, well, frankly, your biggest problem is you might not be withholding enough.
Exactly. That's usually it's either a withholding issue or maybe if you have access to 401ks, 403bs, up your contribution a little bit. Now, you got to realize when you put money in a 401k, it's not from a tax standpoint. If you have $100 in tax and you put $100 in a 401k, it doesn't make the tax go away. The $100 that you put into that 401k, the tax at your savings is your tax rate or your effective tax rate. So let's say that you're at a 10% tax bracket. You put $100 into a 401k, you're saving $10 in tax.
Mm-hmm.
So some people think it's dollar for dollar, like, hey, I'll just put $5,000 extra in my 401k this year and that'll wipe out my debt. No, if you're at a 10% tax bracket, it's going to wipe out $500 of your tax liability,
Not 5,000.
not $5,000.
Yeah.
So that's where it's a combination typically. Concept is pay yourself first. And I say this again and again, pay yourself first. If you give it to the IRS or the state of Missouri or the state of Illinois, honestly, you'll never see it again. It's money gone. Poof. So if you put it into IRAs, 401ks, anything pre-tax, you're going to get that tax savings as you go forward.
And I feel so good about my situation because I talked to you about it and we got it set up. And it's one of these things where I was just flying through life blind and not worrying about retirement. And then once you got us set up, you righted the ship on my withholdings. You had me put in 6%.
Exactly.
And then I bumped that up. Now I think I'm doing 7 with the Roth and 7 with the 401k.
Which is perfect. Every year go up 1%. Don't get, I say, greedy from a standpoint where you go, oh, I'm gonna put extra $2,000 or $3,000 in. Just do an extra 1% every year, whatever your income level is, and get it to where you're maxing that thing out.
And I don't think I'm going to max it out, but I'm also able
In time.
eventually. I'm also able to keep food on the table.
Yes, that's the other side of the equation is you got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So
put in what you can.
Yes.
And if you pay all the bills and you find out that you got a bunch of money left over and you don't want to spend it on bubble gum and whatever,
in Starbucks.
And the avocado toast,
Yes.
then put it, bump it up 1%, and you'll never even notice it's gone.
Exactly.
And these are just the things that Jeff will tell you when you come in. What's done is done last year.
Yeah.
But Jeff is not only there to do your taxes from 2023, he's there to prepare you going forward for 2024.
Exactly. In 25, whatever that may bring, we'll see.
Yeah. So you found some. I love this story. You found something new.
Yes.
Because a client came in and mentioned it.
Yeah. And he goes, what is this? And I've never heard of it.
And it's one of these things I say all the time. I'm like, look, the government's not going to come. The IRS isn't going to knock on my door and say, hey, Josh, we want to come in and tell you all the great things we have
exactly
specifically for
you. It's out there. You just got to find how you get access to it, whether it's through the grapevine, you hear somebody talk about it, or you read some of the, I'll call it tax verbiage stuff, and that's a really dry and really boring.
Yuck.
So.
But you do it.
Yes.
So they make these tax laws. They put them on the books. They institute them. And, I mean, sometimes do they vote some of these laws in and they're like, well, this won't be effective until 2025.
Yes. They get all weird dates that they come in effect.
You wait until they become effective. So they're in there. They just don't really ever tell us about
Nobody
them.
tells us unless you read the bills.
But you've discovered a new one.
There's a new one. So this one is, and this isn't like, oh, it's life-saving or anything like that, but this is what's referenced as a dignity savings account. This is state of Missouri only, so sorry, Illinois people. We'll find some stuff for you.
Yeah.
As soon as we get past tax season. But
Stay
this
tuned.
is a dignity savings account. So this literally is something that you can use as long-term care. So when you say dignity savings account, it's an account that is, I'll say co-sponsored by the state of Missouri. At a financial institution, you can put $4,000 per person or $8,000 for a married filing jointly couple. And you get a state tax deduction for the dollars going in. The dollars grow tax deferred, kind of like a 529. And then as long as they are used for long-term care or qualified health care expenses, long-term care expenses at a later date, they come out tax-free. This thing's been out there since, get this, January of 2021. And I've never seen the light of day of this. So kind of it's not, $4,000 a year that probably won't even cover a month in a assisted living. But if you started today to put money into it, compounding interest on top of that will help you down the road.
And is this like a long-term care version of
Yes.
saving for college?
Yes.
For my son?
Yeah. So you could have on the street version of a long-term care policy, which is, I say this not promoting John Hancock, but John Hancock says, hey, send us $3,000 a year and we'll pay you $5,000 a month if you ever go, assisted living or full, nursing home. And then there's limits like it's 3-year payout, 5-year payout, so on and so forth. This is on top of that.
Okay.
So it's money that you could use as you go forward to help out maybe with nurses. Maybe you're going to take care of the individual at home. Like this for my parents is probably perfect. Father's got dementia. My mom's taking care of him. So something like this, she could put money into it and then use it to pay for maybe
Hire
a nurse.
Yeah.
To pay for a couple hours a day. So $4,000 or $8,000 a year would go a long way, for paying for a nurse.
And does it grow in that account?
Yes, it's still with a financial institution. I would not subject this to the market risk. Just you wouldn't want to put $4,000 in and then need it in a year and then go, it's worth $3,000.
Put it somewhere safe.
Yeah, it's gonna pay you interest, so 4.5-ish. 4
But
and
all
3/4.
of the interest and the everything that it makes while it sits in there, it's all tax
tax deferred,
Tax
which means
deferred.
it's just as long as you use it for qualified healthcare expenses, which are part of the program, it's tax-free withdrawal.
tax free.
Yes.
Okay.
Now,
so
if you touch the account in the first 12 months, then it's a recapture. You're going to pay tax on whatever you got as a deduction previous year. You would pay tax that next year.
So who would be a perfect candidate to open up one of these accounts?
I think anybody over 50-ish, somewhere in that range, to start packing money away. Everybody's going to have healthcare expenses, whether it's a nurse, whether it's assisted living. So put the money in and get the ball rolling on it as you go.
How is this different than a HSA or a health savings
So
account?
that's a health savings account. So that would be the same thing, but this you're getting a state deduction for it. An HSA is really a federal deduction for
I see.
it. If you put that in, you're getting a deduction dollar for dollar. Whatever you put in that HSA, it's either $38.70 or $38.50 single and $83.50 married filing jointly. So that's a federal deduction. This is a state deduction.
Is this something that you would run alongside an HSA maybe?
Yes, or alongside of a long-term care policy too.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh,
So
out
just
out
extra
on the
money.
market.
Yeah, that way you don't have most of your long-term care policies. You go, I have to fire this policy up. It has an elimination period, maybe 30 days, 90 days. You wouldn't have to touch your long-term care policy. You could patch this.
You can hit this.
Exactly.
And then
Prior
if this
to.
ever runs out,
Then you turn on
turn
your
it
long-term
over.
care and go from there.
is this something, what happens if we sock money away into this thing and then we never use it?
So that's the side effect of it has a beneficiary. So this money would go to a beneficiary if it wasn't used. But that is like a true long-term care policy. That's one of the, you got to crash your car to win theories.
Right.
Which means if you pass away, you don't get any benefit of the
look,
you don't have to pay the premiums
You
anymore.
never went into a home.
True.
So what about like when I'm the beneficiary of it as the son? It comes to me and then I pay the regular taxes on it?
You'd have a little. I'm assuming there'd be a little bit of tax on this, just because it wasn't used for qualified. No different than a 529. If it goes to somebody and it's not used to pay for higher education, then it gets taxed.
And those are the rules. I mean, these are really good accounts. These are very specific. One, like the 529, like you mentioned. One is for college education or high school education or tuition or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, 529s are awesome. Tuition, books, tutors. If you got to pay for rent, off-campus rent, you move your freshman year, you're forced to stay in the dorms. Past that, then you move and you could pay rent with it. I mean, all kinds of fun stuff.
So they're great and they're for specific uses, but if you don't end up using them, then you talk to someone like Jeff and you figure out how can we do this. I mean, they're tax beneficial for us when I use it for school, or in this case with this one, if I use it for qualified long-term care. They're tax beneficial for us, so that's the number one reason to start them up. But if we don't end up using them, then we go and visit Jeff and say, now what?
Now, how do we get out of it?
How do we turn it around and get the lowest amount of tax hit possible? It's not, you don't get penalized for it necessarily.
I won't say penalized, no, but you will pay a little bit of a tax on it.
And if it was just a regular, a Ameritrade account, you're going to be paying taxes on it too.
If you inherit an IRA, it's all taxable to you.
No harm, no foul. But if you use it the way it's supposed to be used, then you get some pretty nice, sweet tax benefits from it.
So something out there that I was not aware of that I just stumbled onto last week. So it's a Dignity Savings Account. State of Missouri only, but we'll do a little deeper dive into this as we go forward.
See what Illinois got.
Yeah.
Hardship withdrawals on people's 401ks. This is taking money out because you need it.
Yes.
So you're kind of stealing from your future.
Yeah. So the report came out 3 weeks ago. They're basically saying it's up 30%. So hardship withdrawals are up 30%. So that could be, hey, I have a medical necessity, or I'm out of work, or I got laid off, whatever the case may be. But the hardship withdrawals are up 30% from a year ago. And what they're saying is
Just from a year ago.
Just from a year ago. So you go, and that could be inflation. People need more money. It's the dollars that they're making today just aren't paying the bills. They need a little extra, so they reach in, take a loan out, buy them some time. 1 in 7 people have a loan on their 401ks. So
Really?
yes,
1 in
that's what
7?
they're saying. Yeah.
That seems
So
high.
it seems high, but the 30% increase in hardship withdrawals, you go, that's medical, laid off, whatever the case may be. Just is it a sign of the times? I don't know. I mean, there's so many, I'll say, technical factors that are being thrown at us. These mathematical, CPI data and this and that. And everybody's like, oh, it points to a recession. But if you look at the world I shouldn't say the world, but you look at the United States as we sit today, so far so good.
I asked you about taking money out of your 401k early because I wanted to do something incredibly irresponsible with it. But is there a way to do this responsibly? Is the hardship withdrawal, as long as we pay it back in a certain amount of time, do we get zero hit from this?
Well, I'd say there's really no responsible way, if you want to say it that way. The issue is this, is if you take a loan against your 401k, it's $50,000 max, or whatever your account balance is, less of that. So maximum of 50 grand. So if you had 200,000 in there, max you're going to get is 50 grand. It's typically based on a payback over 5 years. So the issue becomes this, which is, what if you lose your job over the next 5 years before you pay the thing back? Whatever you don't pay back becomes taxable to you. So that's the issue of the day. If you're self-employed, you can't fire yourself. I get it.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer. But again, you say, ooh, I take this. There's got too many, I'll say, liabilities hiding on the back side of it. So only if it is a hardship scenario where you're like, hey, this is my lender of last resort. I have to borrow money from here. I lose my house, or I lose my car, or, I got to pay for this medical stuff. Then, okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Is a hardship withdrawal different than just pulling money out
Yes.
of your 401k early?
Yeah. Well, that's in some cases they won't let you have some of the trustees, and that's the people that run the 401k, that make the rules, et cetera, they may say, hey, we don't have a loan provision. You can't borrow money from this plan because we don't want a bunch of people showing up taking loans on it.
Yeah.
So you couldn't get money from it. There's what's called in-service distributions, which means if you're working for a Fortune 500 company, next week you could go, hey, you know what? I'm going to move my money from my 401k to my personal IRA. You could do that. But a lot of the smaller companies will not allow that. It's part of what's built within that trustee. So the hardship withdrawal is more like, I got to pay taxes. That's the only way I can do
You
it.
have to prove stuff to them?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Health care typically, so on and so forth. So stuff like that, when they say a hardship withdrawal, that is I'll say a financial hardship or a medical hardship that you've ran into.
And I'm sure that on their end, they put some of these rules in place to protect them. But
Yes.
I would say
it's to
a
protect.
lot of these rules protect me
Yes.
from myself.
Exactly. So they're stopping you from doing something really stupid
Yeah.
just because they say, you can't do it.
Yeah.
So, and again, you could yell at the trustees all you want. They sit down annually, figure out, hey, do we want to put this, like in-service distributions? Do we want to do hardship withdrawals, loans, all that kind of stuff? We do a lot of books for companies, and I look on there and I see, they got 30 employees, but 22 of them have loans against the 401ks. And you just scratch your head and go, all right, what's going on
What's
here?
happening?
So
1 in 7, that's a lot
That's
of
a
us.
bunch. That's what I
a
mean.
lot of us now,
Yeah.
up 30% from last
Yes.
year. That's
Huge.
big.
Yes.
So if I need to do something like this, can I come to you to find out what the options are?
We'll do the mathematical calcs for you and say, is it worth it? You know, are the risks worth what you're trying to pull off? You know, and we'll show you the math on it, and then the rest of it, you kind of, you know, once we show it to you, you'll be able to make your own decision pretty quick.
And that payback in 5 years, does that come out of my paycheck?
Yes, it's the only way is through your paycheck.
The only way.
Yeah,
I
so-
can't say, look, I didn't actually use all of it. Here's a bunch back.
We could pay a little bit of it back, but to pay the loan back, literally, it's only going to come through payroll.
Through payroll.
Yeah.
Is that something where I need to bump it up even more
Yes.
so that I'm still hitting my numbers for retirement, but I'm also paying myself back?
So if you borrowed the 50, it's going to turn around and do a calculation to say to pay this 50 back with prevailing interest rates, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Now the interest rate's really coming back to you. It's not like a service fee, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's that out there, so keep that in mind. And if 1 in 7 is the real number of people taking hardship withdrawals from their 401k, there's probably a lot of people listening right now that have done it or
Yeah.
have thought about doing it. And then right before we go to break, I'll just remind everybody there's a new in the state of Missouri Dignity account for your long-term care. You can
Yes.
put up to $4,000 a year single, $8,000 a year.
Yes.
Married,
filing
filing
jointly.
jointly. And that, as long as it's used for qualified long-term care, and you can talk to Jeff about what counts as
Yeah,
qualified.
there's stuff in there that you'd think would count but doesn't. So
You get a bunch of tax breaks and benefits for that. So keep that in mind. That's new. It's been around since 2021, but it's just, again, they don't tell us
Nope,
about
just
these
out there.
things. So we kind of have to just stumble upon them ourselves. And it ain't like I'm going to stumble upon this, Jeff.
no, that's a pretty boring Google search.
Yeah.
So
I rely on you, and you can rely on Jeff as well to tell you that these things exist, whether or not they exist in Missouri or Illinois or wherever you live. Talk to Jeff and say, hey, what is out there for me to make sure that I can keep more of my money on my paycheck, in my bank account, in my retirement account,
Yes.
and less going to the federal government. And if you're not doing anything, I can guarantee you Jeff can find you something to do. 636-394-5524. I am making money every year. I should say I'm keeping more money every year from going to the government when it comes to paying for my son's school. We're getting returns back when otherwise other years we were having to pay.
Yes.
So having Jeff take a look at our stuff has really been a windfall for us in keeping money in our account and less going out to the IRS. 636-394-5524, capitaladvisorygrp.com.
Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Supal.
Back on the show, Keep What's Yours. Give Jeff a call, 636-394-5524. Have Jeff look at your taxes. If you haven't had somebody really pour over them who is responsible, cares about you, wants you to take advantage of all the tax code things that are out there, rather than just flying up to that place on the corner that'll just, they take your paperwork, boom, here's your tax return, see you
Boom,
later.
you're done, yeah.
See you later. The person you've never met before, probably won't see the same person again next year. There's a benefit to having someone on your side, and they actually pour over your stuff, look into your stuff, suggest things. Hey, have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing that? This could save you money. You can stop hemorrhaging money over here.
Yes.
So having someone real look at your taxes, that could be Jeff Zufals. 636-394-5524. Not only is he the same price, but he might even be cheaper than those people that you drive past. Jeff doesn't have to pay for the Uncle Sam costumes.
No.
Low overhead, right? So that's my pitch for Jeff. But let's talk about if I filed 3-4 weeks ago, a month ago,
yes.
and I'm like, hey, where's my refund? Where can I go to check, hey, where's my refund?
So you got to have your tax return with you handy. Go to our website, which is Capital Advisory Group or capitaladvisorygrp.com.
Sure.
Upper right-hand corner, click on the little box. It'll say, where's my refund? It will give you federal, Missouri, Illinois. I don't know how many states are on there now. And you click the button. and it'll take you right to the IRS's website or the state's website, right where you need to be. And you put in a couple of key information like who you are, Social Security number, what you're expecting of your refund, and it'll tell you exactly where it's at, whether it's in process, if it's been paid, when it's going to be paid, all kinds of fun stuff.
But I need the sheet from you.
Yes.
You calculate and you say your refund's going to be $3,521.39.
You need that.
I need to put that exact amount in.
Exact amount.
Why do they need that? Why can't I just say, here's
Security.
my Social Security number? Here's
Security feature.
Security.
That's all it is. Just so
'Cause
somebody doesn't hack away and just guess at Social Security numbers.
You know, I was talking to you on the phone. I was here at work last year, talking to you on the phone, and you mentioned that, and I go, oh, I'll pop out and see where it's at. I didn't have the paperwork in front of me.
Can't do it.
And I was like, well, son of a gun. But it's a security feature. So
Yeah.
you've got the paperwork. Just go find it. Sit down tonight. Hit the Where's My Refund button on the CapitalAdvisoryGRP.com website. Put the numbers in, and it'll tell you.
Yeah.
It'll tell you in transit,
Whatever.
whatever.
Or waiting, something. It'll tell you exactly where it's at, or at least if it's been processed. We've even seen them where it says, hey, your expected date for a deposit is X. They're running 2 weeks right now. States are a little bit faster, which, is typical, but feds are running right at about 2 weeks for return time.
And I'll tell you this, my life has gotten innumerably complicated since we first started going to you. But the first year that we had you do our taxes, you filed them, and you said, oh, you'll get your tax return in a week or two. 3 days later. Whoa!
We're way early that year.
Wow. Whoa. Things are a little different these days. What if I do need to file an extension?
All right. So if you file an extension, make sure, and I repeat this, make sure you pay at least the previous year's tax liability in. And here's why. I get yelled at all the time. People are like, oh, I had to pay a penalty. It's your fault. So here's the thing is if your tax payments are due April 15th, period, in the story, okay? You can file an extension. The extension is to finish off the paperwork and get your tax return filed. But the payment, again, I'll repeat, is due April 15th. So if you are self-employed, if you had a big bonus or something of that effect, the key to it is to keep the underpayment penalties where they don't ding you for it. You have to pay in your previous year's tax liability. If you haven't paid that in yet, that's the difference that you need to pay in. That'll save you from getting hit with underpayment penalties as you go forward.
We talk about this every year,
Yes.
and I have the same questions every year. Well, if I filed an extension, I haven't done my taxes. How do I know what I owe you? Pay
Just
what
go to
you
last
did
year's.
last year.
It won't say you don't owe tax, but what it will do is say that's one of the requirements is you paid 100% of your previous year's tax liability, and they will actually not. And so here's why you need to do this, and it's vitally important this year. In 2024, going forward. In the past, the underpayment penalty, the interest on it, basically was about 2.4, and I think it went to 3 point something, and it goes by quarters, okay? IRS puts the numbers out there. It is currently sitting at 8% a quarter. So the underpayment penalty is huge this year. I mean, huge as you go forward. So if you go, in the past, we didn't really push the issue. We're like, oh, yeah, go do something. You might pay $80, $100, in penalties. If you could make that money somewhere else, that's, or use it somewhere else, okay. Today, you can't do that. It's almost impossible to do it.
That penalty has tripled.
It's huge, yes. So you will see, you owe a couple $1,000, you're going to see a couple $100 penalty popping up. And so everybody's like, well, I filed an extension. The extension is strictly for the filing of the paperwork.
Yep.
The tax needs to be paid by April 15th. End of story.
Don't put your head in the sand.
Yes.
Don't file for an extension and think you just bought yourself some time on the payment side of
Yes.
it. They still want their
They
money.
want their money.
You can have all the time in the world for
Yep.
the paperwork, okay? But pay us our money. And here's another benefit of using Jeff Zufall. It's like, well, what if I got money back last year? What if I did this? How do I know? You will do the calculations for us and say, to be honest and on the up and up and not get dinged with all the penalties and interest and all that stuff, pay them this And then after we do your taxes, if it comes out that you paid too much, they'll give it back
you
to
get
us.
it back. Yeah, exactly.
If they find out that we didn't pay enough, they'll
Then
send
you
you a
owe
bill.
some more.
So you have to pay something by April 15th.
You have to.
No ifs, ands, or
No
buts.
ifs, ands, or buts. You'll get every year we get, and the notices don't come until September, October. There's just one that came yesterday from last year, saying, "Hey, you owe us, $108 in interest," and they're like, "Well, wait, I paid my tax." Well, yeah, but you didn't pay it all by April 15th.
Yeah.
You paid the chunk of it, but you didn't pay 100% of your previous year's tax liability. We filed an extension. Basically, you paid it in, September.
So this year, I already have an extension with you. We talked about this off the air. But I still need to make sure that I pay something.
But that's for your LLC,
Oh,
not your
okay.
personal.
Not for my personal. Okay. So,
little trick out there. So
Right.
yeah,
So don't ignore it. Everyone, extension or not, everyone has to pay something by April 15th and talk to your tax preparer
Yes.
about what that number should be. Talk to Jeff about it, 636-394-5524. He's my tax preparer. He can be yours too. If you owe the IRS money and you don't have it, what
Yes.
am I supposed to do?
don't bury your head in the sand. File the return, and fill out an installment agreement. And most people will say, "Oh, I give them $100 a month on a $10,000 tax bill." Pay enough to where it makes it hurt but doesn't kill you. There's a little pain in that, but again, the interest and the penalties that keep racking up as you roll forward. So make it to where you up the ante a little bit. I see people at couple $1,000, $2,000 tax bill. They're like, "Hey, I'm gonna give them $100 a month." The problem is it'll take you 3 years to pay that off. So up the ante, make it 200, 300, and get it taken care of. The other thing is, if you already have an installment agreement and then you run into where you owe more tax, you have to renegotiate your installment agreement this year. So you'd have to reapply for a new one. I can't say that I've seen the IRS say no, but they may increase your payments, monthly payments, to make sure that you're on track. So,
And it's just another reminder that you have to take accountability for
Yes.
yourself and do something.
Yes.
And look, this stuff might take 20 minutes, 30 minutes out
Exactly.
of your day. But do you want to get dinged 8%?
yeah,
I
you
don't.
you can do the installment agreement online. If not, we can do it for help you. And it's not a loan with the IRS. I mean, it's just an installment agreement saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, I owe you $2,000. I'm going to pay you $200 a month with interest and penalties until it's paid."
If you owe the government and you don't have the money, you need to set up some sort
Yes.
of payment plan. Don't just ignore it.
Don't ignore it, because it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, especially at 8% on these, and it could go higher if rates go up. Again, we're in that waiting to see what the Fed does scenario. If rates go up, it's going to go up also. If rates go down, it'll go down a little bit, but don't play that game.
All right, I want to do some quick hitters here. You said 1099s galore. What does that mean? There's just more and more 1099s coming out year after year. We want to make sure that we have those prepared for you to bring them to you.
Yes. So 1099s from bank interest, those are simple mistakes that are overlooked. You might get a 1099K because you sold something on eBay. You might get it for business. We see a lot of people that they just do a little bit of business on Square. They get a 1099K, but they don't mail it to them, so it doesn't physically show up. They're like, "Hey, I never got that." So that's where we're like, "No, you got one. Go find it." And they go online and mysteriously, boom, here you go. If you file your return without it, it's going to flag your return. IRS is going to come back looking for it later.
And if you got a 1099, chances are the government has a copy of it.
Great chances.
100%
100% chance.
If one is generated,
they have a copy.
they have a copy of it.
So
and if you don't bring yours to the table,
they're going to bring theirs to the table a year and a half later and say,
hey,
"Hey,
what happened to this?
other people reported this. You didn't on your return. Where
What
is it?"
happened?
And
Yeah.
then you get into this crazy letter writing campaign.
Which I hate. I don't want that. So, and if you go to these tax preparers on the side of the road, they're probably not going to ask you. They're going to say,
not.
"You brought me this. I did your taxes with this." And
A lot of hairdressers get 1099Ks from Square, and they may use some use card readers, like real card readers, but they may do a little bit of business through, Square or something like that, and they got $2,000 on that 1099K. And they just don't. They're like, "Oh yeah, that's right," and they go find it typically and bring it back to us.
They've got to bring it to the
Exactly.
table because
Yeah.
the government's got a copy on their end.
Exactly.
And then you brought up compounding interest. This was fun. Maybe we could do.
We need to do
something-
maybe a 20-minute concept on this. We don't have time today, but compounding interest, people lose. It takes off really, really, really slow, but it gets really cool at the end. And the problem is that's where you make your money, is compounding interest over a period of time. But most people don't have the patience to really watch it, so they kind of back off, and then they self-defeating in a sense. They do something stupid, take the money out, and go, "I'm going to put it over here." Concept is compounding interest as you go forward is your friend.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily exponential, I imagine.
No, but it
One doesn't turn into two. But
it does in time, though.
It does
so,
in time.
yeah. So we probably
And then
need to
two
do
turns into four.
exactly.
And then
We
four
probably need
turns
to
into
do
eight.
do a little, maybe a half-hour segment on that.
Well, let's save that for
Yeah.
after tax season.
Yeah.
But let's leave the listeners with something incredibly depressing. Janet Yellen has said that Social Security is at a shortfall of $175 trillion.
Yeah. So this is a report that just came out the other day, which really just boggles your brain. But the U.S. Treasury data shows a $175 trillion shortfall in Social Security and Medicare. And you go, huh?
Yeah.
The trust fund, it's filled with U.S. Treasury debt and IOUs. And literally what they're saying is this comes out, this is even more. You just go, what? They're saying that it comes out to roughly be $1.4 million per American household is what the debt actually comes out to be. And so,
Which I don't have that.
no, nobody's got that.
I can't pay
to
that.
just right in there. So one of the scenarios as you go farther, and I shouldn't say that, there's 3 scenarios that can fix it, okay? And so somebody here shortly of our elected officials is going to have to step up and do this or say this. Basically, slash the income that people are getting today.
And which nobody wants.
Nobody wants that. Massive tax hikes. So you pay 6.2% of your day job. 6.2 goes to Social Security. 1.45 goes to Medicare. And then your employer matches that dollar for dollar. So maybe raise that. Maybe make the 6.2, 7, 8. Who knows what the math is.
Well, I don't want to do that either.
Or everybody gets paid a benefit that's equal to what they call poverty level, which nobody's going to like, because I see people that made good money through their working careers who get $35,000, $40,000 a year from Social Security. They max out basically. And if they had to drop to $18,000, $17,000, I think, is poverty level, they're not going to be happy.
And this is all because over the years, and we're running out of time, but I'd be very curious to find out when the first one happened. Politicians are writing IOUs to Social Security so they could take money out for vanity projects.
Use it
and
for
this and
whatever.
that, whatever. And they never set up a mechanism to pay it
Pay
back.
it back. Yeah.
So they have
it's
robbed
short.
us of $175 trillion.
Trillion. That's with the T. That's a huge, lots of zeros and lots of commas in that.
I mean, people should be going to jail over this.
Hypothetically, yes.
In my personal opinion, but we'll save that for next time. It leaving you on a terrible
Yes.
note. Your future is in danger. Just make sure, though, that the importance of a 401k
Yes.
and a vested in
pension,
pension,
something that you're using for retirement, that you take care of yourself in retirement.
You got to pay yourself first, which is you got to sock money away every paycheck to make sure that you're going to be taken care of, because apparently we can't rely on the federal government for that. But give Jeff Zufall a call and make sure that the bulk of your money is going to you and not to the IRS. 636-394-5524. Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. CapitalAdvisoryGRP.com. Jeff, thank you so much.
Thank you. See you next week.
Good luck. Survive the
Oh,
tax
yeah,
season.
we will.
We'll check in on you, make sure you're still breathing. But then once you pull out of it, you'll take a couple days off on vacation. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
We'll come back and
Yes.
maybe talk about the beauty of compounding interest.
Yes.
It's been a fun one, Jeff. Good luck with the rest of tax season,
Thank you.
and we'll see you next week.
You bet.
The views and opinions expressed in the preceding paid program are those of the host, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of this station, its management, or owners.